Can you imagine an official edict telling you that you must kill your beloved dog? Or what about getting interrogated by the secret police just because you like a certain type of flower? It's happened in China, and you'll soon know why. But first, no porn please, we're Chinese. November 2021, police in Shanghai were knocking down the door of a 38-year-old man while he was frantically deleting files from his laptop and phone. Pornographic movies were on those devices, and in China, that's a big no-no. The man was actually an award-winning movie director named Shen Juhui. His media company had fallen on hard times during the pandemic, and so he decided to try his hand at making porn movies. According to media reports, for each film he made around 30,000 yuan, but since he'd started his enterprise, he'd got around 1 million yuan. He made that in the space of a year, so as ventures go, making porn wasn't too bad. He did actually manage to get rid of much of the evidence, but the cops found details about shooting costs on one of his devices. One of the actresses told the cops that she'd only agreed to take part in the movies if the director agreed that he'd only release them outside of China. But of course, they managed to make their way into China. In fact, the police found out about them because the mother of a 12-year-old boy had found porn files on his laptop and gone to the cops to complain. The kid wasn't arrested, or at least in the reports they don't say he was, but we find some other reports which said some Chinese people had been arrested for merely watching porn. To do that, they had to use a VPN to get around China's infamous Great Firewall. So you have to ask, why is China so down on porn when in most countries it's accepted, if not frowned upon by some parts of society? It's actually been illegal in the country for decades, with the main reason being the communist government says it wants to protect minors and maintain public morality. It doesn't mean people don't make homemade porn or watch it. All you pornography aficionados out there will still know there is a lot of Chinese porn available online. Still, if you are found to be making it, you could get into trouble. As for just watching it, most Chinese people wouldn't worry too much about getting that knock on the door. One Chinese man was asked online about the consumption of porn in his country, and he replied, "If you just watch some sex, take it easy. As long as you don't spread it and download it too much, nothing. Yeah, nothing will happen to you. And my roommate has 5 gigs of these movies to watch at night. This next bit of information could save your life one day. Cross at your own risk." In most countries in Europe and North America, if you see a pedestrian crossing the road, sometimes it's on what's called a zebra crossing. You kind of expect cars to yield. Not so much in some countries in Asia. For instance, if you've ever been to Thailand and you think you can just walk over a zebra crossing and everyone will stop, you could end up being one of those tourists killed in Thailand statistics. Looking at forums, it seems there are a lot of foreigners asking why this is also practiced in China. Cars just don't stop, even though those black and white blocks seem to suggest they should. One American writing about this said, "After living in China for 5 years, I've grown annoyed with this behavior, so now I cross the street and avoid eye contact with the driver. This guy has a death wish, and we really don't suggest you follow in his tracks when you're in China. They might just be bloodied tracks." There are a lot of cultural reasons why some people won't stop at zebra crossings in the country, but we actually found a website that stated drivers in Beijing are forbidden to stop at pedestrian crossings or they risk a 5 RMB fine. We looked into this because, to be honest, we were skeptical about this so-called law. Thankfully, we actually found a website that published the traffic laws for Beijing province. Article 40 of the law does say this: when the lane is rather free and the visibility is good, motor vehicles shall keep on passing through the road at high speed in accordance with the provisions of the road traffic safety laws and regulations, and shall not hinder the passing of vehicles behind. But that doesn't mean cars should keep on going if they see a person. In fact, Article 92 says cars should give way to pedestrians. So in conclusion, even though some people have said by law Chinese drivers won't stop or even slow down for a pedestrian, it's just an unwritten informal rule. Bear that in mind the next time you travel to China. Here's some advice from a Chinese travel website. Even at pedestrian crossings, traffic often doesn't slow down, even if you start walking across. Some will even speed up to show you that they want to go first. This next one will surprise you all. The government owns all the land. In China, you can't actually own land. You can own a house on the land, but the land is the property of the government or the property of a collective. Under the property rights law, you can get a lease on the land, and that could last 70 years and then be renewed. If you sell the house, that lease is then transferred to the new owner. To make this clearer, here's what a Chinese landlord said about owning property in China. You can't own land, but you can own a land use right. Once you have a land use right, you can sell it on the open market to whoever wants it, and the land use right is good for 70 years. No one is quite sure what happens once the land use right expires. He also talked about something interesting, and that was why China has so many so-called ghost cities. In China, you might come across lots and lots of buildings that are empty. The reason is, if you win the right to build on some land, the government wants you to build on it within 2 years, or you will lose the right. The thing is, some of the developers seem to have been hasty and the properties have stayed empty. Alright, so now back to the weird and wonderful. Don't eat that! In 2020, news reports surfaced that said the Chinese government was in the process of a big crackdown on the crime of making videos of yourself eating stuff. Yep, Chinese folks who turned into social media influencers by way of eating were apparently not to the taste of the communist government. The types of videos were something that originated in Korea, and there they got the name mukbang, which translates in English as eating broadcast. The BBC reported that the government wanted to outlaw food broadcasts in the country. Apparently, President Xi Jinping was upset about seeing Chinese citizens waste food in those videos. The BBC wrote, anyone searching for terms such as eating show or eating live stream is now being served with warning notices. The main reason, again, is because the government saw such videos as breaching China's good morals laws. Some members of the public have called the videos wasteful and vulgar, especially when the eaters try and scoff down as much food as possible in a short amount of time, which is a pretty popular kind of video right now in the US and the UK. As you'll now see, eating animals typically kept as pets is also becoming unlawful in some parts of China. Don't eat that! Part 2. During Chairman Mao's Great Leap Forward, millions upon millions of people died during a terrible famine. In the disturbing book Mao's Great Famine, author Frank Dikötter talks about what people resorted to back then. After going through the Chinese archives, he discovered that folks ate tree bark. They sometimes ate each other. They often tried to eat leather after boiling it. These were harsh times indeed. So you won't be surprised to hear that pets were fair game. Eating cats and dogs wasn't uncommon, and still today, some folks in China might be partial to a bit of grilled poodle. But in 2020, news reports stated that Shenzhen became the first city in China to ban the eating of cats and dogs. The city said it had done so in line with the spirit of human civilization. Animal rights activists across the world were happy about this, saying it could become a trend. Still, one of them told the BBC that in China today, about 10 million dogs and 4 million cats are killed for food every year. But don't go thinking everyone's on board with this in China. Most people are in fact very much dead against it. In a survey taken in 2015, 70 to 80% of Chinese respondents said eating cats and dogs was totally acceptable. This next one is out of this world. Say yes to drugs. Like many countries these days, China has a lot of anti-smoking campaigns going on in various parts of the country. But in 2009, Reuters reports that in a place called Gong'an County in Hubei province, the local government had issued an order to make officials smoke at least 23,000 cigarettes per year. Yep, you heard that right. The reason was to stimulate the local economy, seeing that the brand of smokes had to be locally made. Reuters explained those who failed to meet their smoking targets or were caught smoking brands from other provinces would have been fined. Not surprisingly, there was a bit of an uproar about the smoking quota, so as soon as the law went into action, the local government rescinded it. Say yes to more drugs. In 2009, the New York Times wrote about something similar to the cigarette quota, which, as you know, really annoyed a lot of Chinese people. So when officials in Hanchuan, also in Hubei province, created a law to drink more booze, it was also decried by many folks in China. In this law, state workers had to meet a quota of drinking a kind of liquor known as baijiu. Again, the government wanted people to only drink the kind of baijiu made locally. They said that at least $300,000 of the stuff needed to be consumed in a year, which the Times said would have meant every adult drinking 3 bottles a day, enough to cause liver damage over time. Yet again, the government rescinded the rule after many Chinese citizens criticized it. What else could they force the people to do? The answer? Travel. Forced travel plans. In Guizhou province in the south of China, government officials wanted to report inflated numbers of tourists visiting a certain tourist hotspot. To do this, they ordered all state workers to visit that place, which was apparently some ancient ruins. These weren't easy to get to, though, with the news report saying workers had to take a number of buses, after which they had to travel down dirt roads on the backs of motorcycles. Guizhou Commercial News reported that so many employees had to do that trip that at times government offices were totally empty. One thing you have to remember when trying to understand this is that when you live in a collective kind of society, you're expected to do your bit. This was sometimes disastrous in the past when local officials were trying to please the Communist Party hierarchy. As you'll now see, even in modern times, some local bigwigs have gone way too far. Kill all dogs. In what was also a temporary law that was heavily criticized in China, one municipality one day ordered that all dogs had to be killed. This happened in Heihei, which is in Heilongjiang province on the border with Russia. The New York Times said, though unconfirmed, the probable reason for the canine cull might have been because an official getting bitten while he was out on a walk. He was fearful of getting rabies, so it was decided it was time to exterminate all the dogs. The Times wrote, town leaders organized teams of police officers and ordered them to beat to death any dog who ventured into a public space. Obviously, this did not go down well with many of the dog lovers in China. One person talking on a radio show about the order said, "When we need to walk our dogs now, we have to first go out and look for cops." The phrase, "you couldn't make this up," springs to mind, but according to the China Daily website, it was 100% true. It reported that if people were found with dogs, very much alive dogs, they ran the risk of being fined 200 yuan. This caused an outcry all over China, but the government fought back, saying there were too many people getting bitten by dogs, and there was way too much dog poop on the streets. One official said, "We are very worried that if the dog situation gets out of control, it could hurt the city's name." Nonetheless, China's animal rights activists and the country's dog lovers won in the end, and the ban was repealed. This next one is just as strange. Only virgins, please. Experts say that in parts of China we might call the boondocks, some officials are way out of touch with modern times. Thankfully, when these overzealous officials instate a ridiculous law, public outcry often makes them change their minds. Such was the case in the municipality of Chongqing in southwest China when officials created a chastity law for women. We can't find much information about it, but it seems the local government was saying that if unmarried women weren't proved to be virgins, they couldn't make a compensation claim on the land that had been appropriated by the government. The news media simply said that non-virgins didn't deserve money. At least this next one might make some sense. What's in a name? We found quite a few reports over the last few years that talked about government officials banning the use of foreign names for buildings. Some of those names were said to be too exotic and not Chinese enough, such as calling a place Venice, which might sound cool, but apparently it is not Chinese enough. In some parts of China, the government said using such foreign names is damaging the country's sovereignty and the ethnic unity and social stability. In the city of Zhengzhou in central China's Henan province, the local government announced it was time to change a few names. It said a commercial square called Manhattan had to go, as did two residential buildings named Province and Venice. Chinese government officials said names such as those were over-the-top, West-worshipping, weird, and duplicative. Now you get to see government paranoia at its most frantic. Don't you even dare mention this flower. In 2011, the Communist Party started a ban on one of China's most cherished flowers, the jasmine flower. It didn't even want people saying the word jasmine. And this is in a country where people are used to seeing jasmine everywhere, including in their tea. The clampdown on jasmine stemmed from the pro-democracy movement in Tunisia, which got the name the Jasmine Revolution. China's state officials didn't want anything like that happening in China, so they went through the web blocking the word jasmine. They then started banning the sale of the flower in certain markets in the country, even though many people made their money selling jasmine. Prices dropped, so jasmine sellers were out of cash. One of them told the New York Times that he never even heard of the revolution in Tunisia, and he said, "I don't know anything about politics, I don't have much time to watch television." The ban was still somewhat secretive, with Beijing's Public Security Bureau not wanting to talk about it. Still, many folks whose lives involved the flower reported that they'd received a visit from the cops. One woman said she'd been made to attend a meeting in which she and others were told to stay away from jasmine. She was also told to report the license plates of any cars whose occupants had come to the market to buy some of the flowers. Since all this was shrouded in secrecy, no one really knew what the jasmine thing was all about. A jasmine seller at the Xuzhou Flower and Plant Trading Center in Beijing said she'd been told that the crackdown was something to do with Japanese radiation contamination. Another woman who sold the flowers not far from the US Embassy had been told it was related to poison. And we think that is significant proof of government overreach. Now you need to watch crazy laws that still exist around the world, or have a look at this.